Hello Tennos, up here. Today we are going to talk about finishers. If your knowledge of finishers are mainly from what you read on wiki, chances are you probably got some of the concepts wrong, or at least the damage calculations wrong. So before we begin, take a moment to recall everything you know about finishers, and at the end of this video, see how much did you manage to get right. If this video helped you to have a better understanding of Warframe, please consider subscribing and stick around, for we have a lot of stuff like this and your contribution will allow this channel to grow. Now, as mentioned before, I don't like making repeating contents because as a viewer myself, I don't want to spend time watching stuff I already knew. But interestingly enough, although finisher mechanics has been around for a really long time, there really isn't a good video about it that I could find on YouTube. So for this video, I'll be going through some of the basics and gradually making my way to the more confusing and interesting parts. First off, let's take a look at why Wiki is giving people a hard time with this topic. If you are new and you'd like to know more about finishers, chances are you'll come to Warframe Wiki and look up the keyword finisher, and this will pop out. So this page basically talks about finishing damage as a damage type, and over here you'll learn things like slash procs, stealth finishers, and counterattack finishers belong to this damage type. They could ignore armor, and also it does not have any positive or negative modifiers on any enemies besides the infested sinew health type. Then you'll see the first confusing part at this table. It says that damage ignores armor, which is correct, but next to it, it also says that the damage ignores shield, which is false. Yes, bleed from slash procs is indeed a finisher damage, and it does ignore shields, but all other finisher does not, as you can see in the demonstration here. So at this point, even though you scroll through the entire page, you still don't know things like what is the damage multiplier a finisher actually gives you. And maybe you're smart enough to click on things like the stealth finisher or counterattack finisher, since they are the most common ways of dealing a finishing damage. So let's see what happens if you, let's say, click stealth finisher. And then you come to this page, which is your melee 2.0. Okay, and you can see your ground finisher here, counter attack finisher here. If you go above the stealth finisher, you actually see another finisher here, which basically tells you that the finisher attack damage is dependent on the melee weapon type. Okay, so you get 1200% total melee weapon damage for dagger, daggers, pole arms, and staffs. And for hammers, it's 2400%. And then for every other weapon is 1600%. Only problem is these figures is inaccurate, and I'm gonna just show you really quickly why I say that. So over here we have Excalibur, and I just want to let you guys know that I'm not having things like steel charge and stuff like that. Anything that can alter the damage of your weapon, you really want to remove it, otherwise it's gonna mess up your figures. And over here I have the Shaku. I just thought that it's easier to use this weapon since it only has impact damage and its damage is only 55. So the way I mod it is basically nothing. I don't even need Prime Fury, I just want to make it quicker, so I have this thing on. Okay, so the idea here is that if we follow what the wiki says, and I'm doing 55 damage, that will be converted into finisher damage when you do a finisher, and it's gonna bypass all the armor. It's not gonna have any modifiers on, so it's gonna be a pure 55 damage. But then it should do an extra, since this weapon, the Shaku, is not listed, so it's gonna do the 1600% damage. Now if you take 55 damage and you times that to 1600%, you're only gonna get about 880 damage out of this if you do a finisher damage. So let's take a look at the damage that I'm gonna do with the Shaku. Okay, now it really doesn't matter what enemy I use because it's gonna bypass the armor anyways, and what level also doesn't matter. And since Warframe is invulnerable now, so okay, so I'm gonna blind him. Alright, and take a look at that damage. There you go, it's 3534. So if it's only a 1600% increment, it should be 880. But instead, I'm actually getting a 6400% increment. So what's going on there? Let's come back to the wiki page for now. Right after, it tells you how much damage you're supposed to do. If you scroll down, you see stealth finisher, and over here it tells you how to initiate a stealth finisher. Basically, you need a unalerted enemy and you have to go behind them, and you should see a prompt sticking out saying stealth attack. When you use your melee attack, you initiate the stealth finisher. And if you continue scrolling down, you'll see things like ground finisher. By the way, this damage is not a finishing damage, so it does not bypass armor. But the statement here is very accurate and very straight to the point. You can only use this on a knockdown enemy, and the damage that you'll be dealing is 400% of whatever damage that you would have been doing if it's not knocked down, if you did not pull off a ground finisher. So for example, if you're doing 1000 damage, if it's knocked down and you do a ground finisher, you'll do 4000 damage. Very straight to the point, very clear. And the next one is counter attack finisher, and over here again it tells you all the things that you could do to initiate the counter attack finisher, mostly from Warframe abilities. There's also mods like parry and retribution that could stagger the enemy enough for you to pull it off. Now all this information is good and all, and I would highly recommend you coming over to this page to read about it. However, there isn't any information on the damage. Like there's no calculation, no formula given for the counter attack finishers or the stealth finishers, which is why, correct me if I'm wrong, the majority believes that the stealth finisher and also counter attack finisher is based off these values. At this point, I believe most people will accept it and just stop looking. But even though you came all the way here to the wiki page to learn about finishers, if you were to click on stealth instead, and you come to this page talking about stealth, and you scroll down to a point where it actually tells you that there is a stealth multiplier to enemies that is unaware, and this is always exactly 8 times stated over here. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see something called a stealth attack. And to me, this is really confusing. Like, what is a stealth attack? From the picture over here, it looks exactly like a stealth finisher. And if you read it, it also sounds exactly like a stealth finisher. And the truth is, it is a stealth finisher. It's just that they're not very consistent with the words that they use, so therefore it confuses me. I don't know if it confuses you. Coming back to this page, if you were to scroll down a little bit more, you'll see formula, finally. And over here it states that stealth attack damage is equal to weapon damage times stealth multiplier, which is 8, and then times the weapon multiplier. And then you see a whole new range of weapon multiplier, different from the one that we just saw in Melee 2.0. So for example, dagger, do dagger, pole arms, and staffs gives you 3 times weapon multiplier. Over here, it would seem like the daggers, do daggers, pole arms, and staff gives you 1200% melee weapon damage. So again, it's confusing, like which is the correct one. But to be totally honest with you, the figures given over here, I have no way of making sense of it. However, these values over here I could work with. So let's take a look at these values. So we know that the Shaku is not listed over here, so it definitely belongs to the weapon multiplier of 4. And then if we use this equation, now again from wiki, so the weapon damage is 55, the stealth multiplier is 8, times the weapon multiplier in this case is 4, and you will get 1760, which is not the actual damage again. To be fair, I believe that this equation is almost right. The only problem is the way weapon damage is being defined here. You see, the weapon damage here is calculated in a way that's a bit odd, and I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, but the weapon base damage is added an extra time, which can be increased with damage multiplier mods, but not with physical or elemental mods. So it took me kind of long to figure this out, and I know that there are people out there that really wants to know. Just take a look at the wiki comments. So yeah, I pretty much made this for you guys. Over here is actually some general stuff. You can pause the screen to take a look if you want to. And this is the formula that I came up with. This formula has worked with whatever I've thrown at it, and there's no way for me to actually know if the game is using this exact formula, but since it worked on so many conditions, I would say that even if it's not using this formula, it's definitely really close. At the side are some examples of the weapons that I've tested and I placed here with the figures. I actually did a lot more testing, but it's just so much easier to do the recording and calculations with pen and paper, so I did not actually bother typing it out. These are just things like for show, in case if you want to analyze it, you could just take a look over here. Now these values are without mods. That means the weapon is not modded with pressure point, it does not have any elemental or physical mods on. It's really just the weapon by itself. So it's running with base damage, and we're gonna see how it performs with the formula when we put in different mods in just a minute. Now in case if you did not understand what I meant when I was talking about weapon damage just now, so here is the formula written out for you. So originally in most cases is that you have the base damage of the weapon, and then you add whatever physical or elemental damage mods that you have, and those percentage is added to that base damage, and together this whole thing will then multiply with whatever multiplier mods that you're going to put in. For example, pressure point, steel charge, the faction mods, the let's say in this case if you're playing with finishers, finishing touch and things like that. But what happened now is that before this one gets multiplied to the weapon mod multipliers like pressure point and stuff like that, it actually needs to add the base damage once more, and after you add that one more time, this whole thing this whole thing will then times with whatever multiplier that you have on, and that will be your weapon damage. And with that weapon damage, now you can fit into this equation, and then you have your weapon damage times the stealth multiplier, again is 8, and then your weapon multiplier. So for the shaku will be 4, and for hammers it will be 6, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. Take a look at the shaku really quickly again. So since there is no significant mods here that could alter the damage, therefore the weapon mod multiplier is taken as 1. There's no extra physical elemental damage here, so those are 0, but you still have to add its base value again. So instead of 55, you're supposed to add it again, another 55, that will give you 110 damage. Use 110 damage as your weapon damage and put into that stealth attack damage formula, and you should get your answer really close to the actual. Now the reason why it's really close but not exactly the same is because of, now I actually talked about this in a previous video, I believe that the game is really smart. Instead of tracking every single movement you do and every single thing you do, because some attacks actually gets influenced from what you did before, so therefore instead of doing all those things and using a lot of memory space, what they did was they increase your damage insignificantly, like maybe increase by 1 damage or 2 damage, maybe even minus a certain amount of damage, and then from there they will the game basically look at your value, know how much it should be and how much has increased, and it will know like what kind of damage you're doing or which instance are you attacking at. And I believe that if your calculation is roughly around plus minus 5%, that is accurate enough. So let's take a look at a next calculation, for example. So again, let's use the shaku. We're gonna try it with a different weapon really soon, just to prove like it works. Okay, so let's say we put in north wind. Okay, so it increases the the elemental by 49.5 now. Okay, if let's just make it a little bit harder. So let's say put in a pressure point, so this will increase by 120%. So what will happen is that, okay, before you put in pressure point, look at this value. Okay, so this value, you add them up plus another impact of 55, or because they're all going to be converted into finisher damage, so it's not really impact, it doesn't really matter. So basically this value, which is 104.5, I believe, so you just add another 55, that will give you 159.5, I think, and with that value then you times with your pressure point, okay, which is 100, which is 2.2, and from there you should get the damage that you're supposed to do when you do a finisher, when you put it into that finisher attack, I mean the stealth attack damage equation. Okay, so let's take a look at the damage, and I will show you the calculations on the screen. So here you go, let's summon this again. Okay, there you go, about 11k, 11.1k. Okay, let's try to make it even harder. Okay, so let's say if we put in, I don't know, let's put in more mods. Okay, let's put in 3 of them. You know what, why not all of them? No. Okay, let's remove this. Let's put in all of them, and then we're gonna put in something like, there you go, Smite Grenier. Ooh. We could also put in the finishing touch. Alright, so let's see how the damage is gonna work. So what I would do in this case is that, since I'm gonna calculate it first, so I'm gonna remove the weapon multipliers first, go all the way to the back here, and really just look at these damage. So what you're gonna do again is you take 55 plus 99 plus 99 plus another 55, which is the base damage, and then with that figure, now you times 2.2 for pressure point, times with 1.3 for Smite Grenier, and times 1.6 for the finishing touch. And with that value, put it into the stealth attack damage equation, you should get something like, oop, did I just spawn another one? I think I did, but anyways. Okay, so you should get something like, there you go, around 44k. Okay, so let's try a different weapon this time. We're gonna try a hammer. Hammer is supposed to be really good for finishers because of the 6-time weapon multiplier. Okay, so again, let's just try to put in some stuff. I do not have capacity, so let's just run with North Wind and Prime Pressure Point. Let's just try something else. There you go. Okay, so again, what I would do is I will remove the Prime Pressure Point. Let's scroll all the way to the back so that I will see it. Okay, I remove it, and then I will take a look at, okay. So you have to remove the Fever Strike as well, just to look at the base damage. So it's 130. Now remember, your base weapon damage is 130. Okay, now you put this on, so you get 247. So what you want to do is take 247 plus the base 130, and then you do your multiplications. So over here you times 2.65, and that should give you the damage of your hammer finisher. Here, oh, did I just summon another one? Okay, I need to get used to that. There you go, about 47k. Okay, so I guess that pretty much proves the formula. Okay, looks like the video is getting a little bit too long, so I may have to remove some contents, but there is still some things that I really want to talk about and really want to share. So first of all is a new way of playing with finisher. Okay, I haven't seen anyone done this before, so hopefully this is new to you and it's gonna be fun for you. So over here I have the Guandao. You can actually use this with other weapons, but not all weapons could kind of fit this playstyle. Now first of all, I want to talk about the Guandao. The Guandao is a beautiful weapon, and look at that huge blade. Now a lot of people would definitely mod this with attack speed because attack speed equals damage at some point. So but the thing is, if you are, you know, like role playing and stuff, to move something, the blade, you know, something so big that quickly looks very unrealistic. It feels like it's physically impossible, which has this, I don't know, this feeling that it's not right. So what I did was I did the opposite. I made it really slow, and you can see how the playstyle kind of works, and tell me at the comments what you think. So first of all, let's take a look at the modding. So we have parry, because we are talking about finishers in this video, so we are going to use this weapon to do finishers. We have parry, we have finishing touch, we have the elemental mods, which gives you some damage. I have this to reduce some channeling costs, because we are going to use parry, and you have to be channeling when you're doing this, and while you're channeling you will be spending a little bit of energy if you attack, so just a little bit of efficiency. Then I went with some prime reach, because you'll see why in just a second. Prime pressure point and sport strike. Okay, so a lot of damage but really slow attack speed. How slow are we talking about? So let's take a look, and this is the normal combo. Yeah, ridiculous, but that is not going to be the combo that we are going to use. We are actually going to use this one instead, which is charge attacks. Okay, so throughout the whole game we're pretty much gonna do charge attacks. If the charge attack actually hits with a pole arm, you'll knock the enemy down. I could go close to it and do a ground finisher, or again another finisher. Now the idea here is that there is a hidden sort of mechanic that a lot of people do not know, is that if you were to block and then you do your charge attack will still continue while you are still blocking. So for example, like that. So as you can see, I knocked him down while I am still blocking. There you go. I don't know if you can actually see that. See, I'm blocking, but my charge attack still comes out. When it's down, do a ground finisher that does a lot of damage. Yeah, so that is the idea here. So that hidden mechanic, which is while you're blocking and you do a charge, you will still be blocking. So in a way, you have sort of a interesting defense going on, because in most cases you are blocking while you're channeling, and when you do manage to pull off, wait, did I say channeling? While you're charging, and when you do manage to finish your charge, you will knock the enemies around you down. Okay, so it's pretty good in a way, you know, defensive way. Now the idea next is that you want to channel. Okay, so when you're blocking or when you're charging, okay, you keep your weapon channeling. So what will happen is that, let me just show you. Okay, so basically you channel, there you go. There you go. Okay, let me just show you that again. What will happen is that if you go close enough and you channel like this, and if he were to melee you, you will instantly do a finisher. Okay, let him do his stomp thing first. Okay, so first I'm gonna turn on my channeling and charge. Oop, looks like it missed. More like he missed. So it's like, oh, there you go. He did not melee me, so he has to melee me. Ooh, Jesus. In order for it to work. There you go. Okay, so what happens again is that if he melee me while I am charging at that condition, I will instantly do a finisher on him. Keep in mind that stealth finishers and counter attack finishers cannot proc, so procability is 0. However, ground finishers and stealth damage can. So there is another method of playing, is that by using bleed. with ground finishers, because the ground finishers is gonna increase the bleed damage, and also use stealth damage to increase the bleed damage as well, and it could be really ridiculously high. So you have a dual sword weapon, and something unique about them is that if you do a ground finisher with them, it's almost 100% bleed proc. So if you mod it towards bleed, and let's say in this case I have a sentinel that could actually knock enemies down, and what happened here is that when he knocked the enemy down, then I could do my ground finisher. I actually also have condition overload on, so any additional proc on him is going to add that bleed damage by a lot. On top of that, you can actually do stealth damage if you manage to keep the enemies unalerted, to also further boost that bleed damage, causing a massive amount of damage. So let's take a look at some problems with the finishers. First of all, the damage can be reduced by auras from ancients and also Blitz Eximus, or damage limits like the Nox, or even from some bosses. Weapon unique finisher combos. Now, different weapon has different types of finishers. Some finishers, like for example the glaives, comes in 2 parts, but if you add them together, it becomes the same total amount of finisher damage that you should be doing. Same goes with daggers, but sometimes when you do a finisher in front of them and also behind them, you get different values. As an example, here we have a dagger. So if I were to summon an enemy, there you go, if I hit in front of them, you could see easily around 6k. Okay, however, if I were to do a finisher behind them, you'll see that the second hit was, before it was 4k, now it's only 1k plus. So there is a huge damage reduction from there. These things that I'm telling you right now, that I'm showing right now, is most likely, if you ask me, I would consider as a bug. So let me show you a different weapon, which is the Cyber, I don't know what it's called. Okay, so let's just kill this one, get a new one. Okay, this is modded exactly the same way as it was previously. Okay, so here we go. So at the front, you're gonna see, there you go, 47k. But from the back, you will actually see 247k. So for pretty much every single weapon, the stealth finisher damage and also counter attack finisher damage is the same. However, the Shaku is one of the unique ones that has different value. If you were to bring it out on a mission and do a stealth attack, it actually gives you a different value than if you were to do a counter attack finisher. By the way, it's not just the Shaku, it actually applies to its entire class of weapon. This includes the Ninkondi. Finally, the problem that I hate the most is covert lethality, which allows you to one-shot enemies with a dagger, as long as you're using a counter finisher or a stealth finisher. Now this mod sort of overshadowed the entire finisher mechanic, because if you're gonna play with finisher, why not just bring a butter knife with this mod on, and you're gonna one hit everything. So like, what's the point, right? So it's like, what's the point of bringing a hammer? What's the point of even learning the damage, because you're gonna one shot everything? So this is actually a mod that I feel like shouldn't exist. I know I'm being a little bit harsh, but this is just my point of view. However, with that said, there are enemies that is immune to lethality, mostly bosses. So if you can't kill a boss with one hit, even though you're using covert lethality, that's only because they are immune to that. So you might want to consider using a hammer instead, and you should still be able to one-shot them. That's pretty much it for this video. If you want to see something interesting with the sparring weapons and finishers, I'll put the video link at the description or a card at the top. You can also see what I deem the best or the king of finisher weapon is. This video is actually not easy to make due to the amount of research required. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and sorry about the duration of the video. Do subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you learned anything, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.